Hey everyone, welcome to the Gaming X. For today's review, we're going to be checking out Gravel on the Xbox One. Now this is the latest racer from developers Milestone, who pretty much stick almost exclusively to the racing genre. Most recently I actually reviewed their Monster Energy Supercross title, and I was mostly surprised and impressed. Now moving from 2 to 4 wheels, can they keep the winning streak going, or should you save your money? Now before we jump into the review, remember to hit like, leave a comment below, or even just hit subscribe. We are so thankful for all those that have subscribed already and would love to see you join us so you can let us spend our money so you don't have to. Now with that being said, let's jump in to today's review. So when I first saw this title, I'll be honest, I was not impressed. You can't help but compare this to Dirt, a game I personally have invested quite some time into, and I would consider myself a big fan of Codemaster racers. Fortunately, when I got into actually playing this game though, it all started to make sense. This is arcade racing and the visuals here are designed to match. Now tracks generally, they looked really nice throughout, as track deformation really starts to take effect, lighting is especially impressive as it washes across your screen, and the environments were largely the right side of realistic. I think it's fair to say a Milestone budget compared to say a Microsoft or a Sony is smaller, so if you're going to compare this side by side, then yes, it's going to be night and day. But generally, I really felt they pulled it off and it suited the intentions as it should. Then the all-important cars, and I've definitely seen more impressive, but that's not to say they are bad. Generally, every vehicle here is recognisable, they look the part, but there is a level of low detail to all of them alongside some of the construction materials just not looking quite right. The low detail is especially apparent when you change to that first person mode, but I know that is an acquired taste that you either love or hate, so just be aware it is there if that's your personal preference. Finally, with the cars, we do have some damage modelling, but it is pretty poor. No developer can seem to get this quite right still. Here, the cars will take damage, but they take one hell of a beating before it even begins to show. So unless you're going into this treating it like you're driving on a pinball machine wall to wall, you're really not going to notice it. I'd say generally the car models, they do enough, but I was far from blown away. Now when it comes to environmental effects, there's some really nice touches in here. Dirt and snow will be kicked up onto your car and it's going to remain there as you progress through the race. Or then there's just the simple effects like rain which will punch off your vehicle. They're small touches, but welcome ones. One exception here when it comes to environmental effects I will point out is the water, and it leaves a huge amount to be desired. It's almost dead still at all times and it just doesn't have any real reaction as you plough your car through it. With the cameras, you'll of course have the different viewpoints, which I just want to touch on very briefly, and here you're going to find 5. They're pretty much standard, pulled out, cockpit, bumper, you know the drill. Finally, a couple of issues when it did come to the Xbox was popping. I couldn't help but notice when the more demanding effects were approaching, especially the lighting, you will start to notice popping kicking in ahead. If however this is what they needed to do to keep the frame rate solid, then it's a compromise we will have to live with. Now it's not the most demanding game however, so I feel they had some room for improvement here. Last, I just want to touch on the visuals when it comes to career mode. Presenting the format of a TV show, these are almost laughably bad with live actors ringing in their paycheck, but my god is it fun, and it added a level of humour to the title I really enjoyed. Now I know it wasn't intentional, but it doesn't mean we can't enjoy it still. Then there's gameplay, and this is of course make or break for Gravel. Aside from multiplayer, single race and time trial, which are all self-explanatory, we have the Gravel TV career mode I've referenced throughout. Here you'll take on the role of an up-and-coming racer ready to make his mark on the industry, competing against a group of pros. Breaking the show down into weeks, you'll be tasked with taking on a number of races before taking on one of these competitors at the end to move you swiftly up the ranks. Now this format is actually more reminiscent of a kart game than any recent racer I can think of, where there's almost a boss at the end of each week. There's even one mode that completely breaks away from the typical race, presenting barriers where you must hit the correct one to progress and not fail. It's a fun mode that actually breaks down any risk of boredom or repetition that does tend to set in with racing titles. Milestone has definitely taken a number of features straight from the pages of Race Driver Grid. It was present in Monster Energy Supercross and it's here again. I'm of course talking about the rewind ability. This definitely, in my opinion, it makes the game way too easy with minimal penalty attached, but it's going to be good for beginners or casual gamers. Now what is the penalty? It's deduction of points, and these are awarded as you race, so hold a drift, get some points, reach and hold top speed, get some points, just simply survive the race, get some points. It's a nice system, but generally it doesn't really add too much to the overall experience, and I didn't really notice any slowdown in unlocking my next car, which seems to predominantly be attached to simply finishing races. So finally, let's talk about handling, and I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's not perfect. When you begin, this is full arcade racing. The cars have a great amount of speed to them, and the handling, it generally feels strong. They have weight behind everything the cars are manoeuvring, but just occasionally, I will warn you, on some of these more aggressive drifts and turns, you will start to feel like you're floating across the track. Now as you get deeper into it, you can start to adjust the options, however, and assist, and this is where the game really steps up and it becomes somewhat of a hybrid between arcade and simulation. Generally, handling is everything we would expect of the arcade genre. It's fast, it requires little skill, and most importantly, it's fun. I challenge anyone not to smile at this game as you fly off a ramp at 120 miles per hour, hoping you have the ability to fly. So finally, audio, and when it comes to music, this one is about as unimaginative as the genre is famous for. Guitars screech and there's a general cheese throughout, but after a few laps in, it was quickly muted to be replaced with my own choices in this department. When it comes to sound effects, it's actually a really good job here. The environmental sounds, they're really nice. Some of the rain, some of the mud and the track. It's got a real weighty, realistic vibe to it. Then there's the engines, and these in particular were a highlight for me. You can really differentiate between the different cars surrounding you. Finally, Gravel TV, and I really wanted to touch on this very quickly. Now as I've stated, it's complete nonsense, and it's supported with minimal dialogue that tells you the race coming up, and a few small comments. Now if I had to choose honestly between minimal commentary like this, or hearing repetition constantly just to fill the silence, I'm looking at you Madden, then I'd choose this. It's enough to add something without annoying the hell out of you. In summary, apart from the music, it's actually not bad at all. So the final verdict, and like Monster Supercross, I've got to say it's a welcome surprise. Now it's definitely far from perfect, but what it does provide is a budget racer with all the right elements to entertain. The graphics, while not the best, suit the arcade expectations perfectly. Gravel TV in career mode is a fun take on what could have simply been another progressive career mode with zero personality. And then there's a storyline that's so bad it's nearly good. Finally, the handling, and it's what you would expect from this type of racer. This is not Forza or Gran Turismo, but they've tried to give a slightly different experience somewhere around a Need for Speed title in a dirt universe. If you are looking for that next sim racer, then this is definitely not for you. But if you've always wanted to enjoy a game such as Dirt but got stuck in the frustration of the realism, then maybe this would be a perfect pickup for you. The Gaming X gives Gravel a respectable 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching. If you like what you've seen today, remember to hit subscribe and join us for reviews and news every week. We'll see you on the next Gaming X.